Good morning, everyone. Trust. It's a word we throw around often. We use it in our relationships at work with friends and even with complete strangers. But what is trust really? Trust isn't a declaration. It's not "I trust you because you said I could." Trust is a feeling, and like all feelings, it can't be rushed or forced. Yet, in the fast-paced world we live in, we often try to shortcut the process of trust building. We send one text and assume the relationship is solid. We have one good quarter at work and expect unwavering loyalty from our team. We get frustrated when people don't instantly let us in. Trust is built through consistent actions, not words. It's one of those universal truths that, on the surface, seem simple yet require more dedication and time than many realize. Too often, people speak of trust as if it's something that can be instantly achieved. A promise here, a bold statement there, and just like that, trust is established. But anyone who spent any time building relationships, whether personal or professional, knows that this isn't the reality. Trust is earned over time. It's the byproduct of a sustained effort to demonstrate reliability, honesty, and commitment through our actions. Without consistency in those actions, trust will always remain just out of reach. Think about a situation where trust is expected to form quickly. Say, you meet someone new and instantly share deep personal details with them. How do you feel afterwards? Chances are you might feel a bit uneasy, questioning if that person can really be trusted, even though they promised they'd listen or be supportive. The problem here is not necessarily the person, but the expectation of trust without a history of action to back up those claims. Words alone, no matter how sincere or comforting, cannot create trust. Trust is a living, evolving thing, and the foundation of that evolution is built through what we do, not what we say. Consider the workplace. Leaders can promise to always have your back, but the true test of that statement comes when a difficult situation arises. Will they stand by their team when things get tough? Will they deliver on their commitment when there's no one watching? Employees are looking to see if a leader's actions align with the promises they make. If a leader continually demonstrates reliability and integrity, trust naturally builds over time. But if actions do not align with the words spoken, trust is eroded, and no matter how many times a promise is made, the damage to that trust becomes harder and harder to repair. At the heart of trust building through consistent action is the principle of reliability. Reliability doesn't just mean doing what's promised. It's about the ability to show up time and time again, even when circumstances change, even when it's inconvenient, even when others might not notice. Reliability is what transforms words into reality. It's about being present when needed and following through on commitments, big or small. It is about establishing a pattern of action that others can depend on. This is true not only in professional environments, but also in personal relationships. Think about the people you trust the most in your life. More often than not, those are the people who show up consistently. They don't need to make grand proclamations, their actions speak for them. The friend who checks in regularly, even when there's nothing major to discuss, is often the friend who can be trusted in times of need. It's the partner who's there, not just in moments of joy, but also when things get difficult. They don't rely on just the words they speak, they rely on the strength of their consistent presence and actions. What happens when someone breaks the cycle of consistency? When a leader misses a promise, or a friend isn't there when you need them, trust begins to unravel. While we may be willing to forgive one-time mistakes, it's much harder to restore trust when there's a pattern of inconsistency. In those moments, the words and promises made in the past often lose their weight. What matters now is whether or not there has been a sustained effort to prove reliability. Without that continued demonstration of action, trust will always feel like something that's missing, regardless of what is said. Over time, trust becomes deeper because it is backed by repeated, meaningful actions. When we demonstrate through our behavior that we are dependable, others feel safe to rely on us. The same holds true for teams. A team doesn't thrive on one individual's charisma or promises of leadership. It thrives when those within the team show up, give their best every day, support each other, and remain true to their word. When team members can count on each other's presence and contributions consistently, trust becomes the natural byproduct. Consistency in action creates stability in relationships, and that stability forms a solid bedrock on which collaboration, respect, and deeper trust can flourish. So why is trust built through consistent action? It's because trust is not a simple transaction. It's not a one-off event, but rather an ongoing process that requires time, effort, and demonstration of character. Our actions tell people who we are, what we value, and how much we can be relied upon. Words might capture someone's attention, but actions earn their confidence and ensure that trust, once established, is rooted deeply and doesn't waver easily. Over time, as this pattern of consistency unfolds, it becomes part of who we are, part of our reputation. The long-term impact of consistently dependable actions is that trust eventually becomes automatic. It no longer needs to be negotiated or questioned. Instead, it is simply known. Vulnerability fosters connection and deepens trust. It's an idea that seems counterintuitive in a world where strength, power, and self-sufficiency are often seen as the ultimate qualities. Vulnerability is frequently perceived as a weakness, a flaw to hide away. But the reality is much different. In truth, vulnerability is what creates space for true connection between people. It is in those moments where we open ourselves up, where we allow ourselves to be raw and imperfect, that the deepest bonds are often formed. It's the willingness to share our flaws, our uncertainties, and our fears that cultivates a sense of trust far more profound than any demonstration of competence or success. When we expose ourselves in ways that feel uncomfortable, we're essentially saying to others, I trust you enough to show you who I really am. That act of openness provides others with permission to do the same. No one is perfect, and we all have experiences that shape us, some of which may involve pain, failure, and uncertainty. By showing up with our full selves, strengths, weaknesses, and everything in between, we remove the barrier of perfection that so often separates people and creates space for empathy and understanding. This is a fundamental part of trust building, because when we reveal our true selves, we begin to see each other for who we truly are, not who we pretend to be. Vulnerability brings us closer because it allows us to see the humanity in one another. It dissolves the illusion of perfection that many of us so desperately try to maintain. After all, when you think about the people you truly trust in your life, they're often the ones who have shared their own vulnerabilities with you. It's the friend who admits their mistakes or fears. It's the colleague who confesses when they're struggling with a project rather than trying to maintain a facade of always having it together. It's the partner who opens up about their insecurities or moments of doubt, showing that they too are human, just like the rest of us. When people show us their vulnerabilities, they make themselves accessible and real, and this truth is what makes them trustworthy. Consider how vulnerability operates in leadership. A leader who opens up about their challenges, their doubts, and their mistakes isn't perceived as weak. Quite the opposite, they are often seen as stronger because they demonstrate authenticity and courage. Vulnerability in leadership isn't about weakness, it's about setting the tone for honesty and transparency. It's about saying, I don't have all the answers, but I'm willing to learn and grow alongside you. Leaders who hide their vulnerabilities often create an environment where others feel they must do the same, leading to a culture of guardedness and, over time, mistrust. But when leaders take the risk to show their humanity, it becomes a powerful act that helps foster connection, mutual respect, and a genuine sense of trust within the team. Vulnerability removes the distance between leader and follower and allows for collaboration on a much deeper level. In any relationship, vulnerability acts as a bridge to understanding. Think about the bonds formed after shared moments of discomfort or challenge. When two people are willing to go to a vulnerable place with one another, whether through a difficult conversation, a shared struggle, or an act of support, something special happens. A connection is forged in the fire of openness. It's in these moments that the foundation of trust grows the strongest. Because in truth, vulnerability is an invitation. It's an invitation to others to come closer, to empathize, and to let their guard down as well. Once that door is opened, trust begins to flow, growing with every moment of shared honesty, understanding, and emotional exposure. Yet vulnerability doesn't mean oversharing or seeking validation. It's not about unloading your emotional baggage onto someone without consideration. Vulnerability is about giving others a glimpse into your authentic self, the parts of you that are rarely seen, the parts that are messy and imperfect. It's a calculated risk, not just for the sake of connection, but because ultimately we allow ourselves to be seen for who we truly are. And in that openness, we show others they are safe to do the same. This is what deepens the trust between people, both acknowledging that we are all flawed, but still worthy of love, respect, and connection. There's also something incredibly powerful about how vulnerability can help us understand one another more deeply. When someone allows themselves to be vulnerable, They're often showing their true emotional landscape, the fears, struggles, hopes, and values that drive them. Vulnerability allows others to see beyond external achievements or behaviors, helping us understand the deeper motivations that drive human actions. When we understand someone's deeper motives, we have a clearer sense of where they're coming from, which leads to greater trust. When people are able to look beyond surface-level differences or mistakes, they can more easily empathize with one another. True vulnerability isn't about exposing everything at once. It's about creating a space where small, deliberate moments of openness contribute to deeper connections. With each experience of vulnerability shared, trust strengthens incrementally, forming a foundation built not on perfection but on understanding and compassion. Those who have had the courage to show their vulnerability teach us a fundamental truth about the nature of trust. It is not founded on an image of strength, but on the strength found in being willing to be vulnerable. True listening shows people they matter. It's a powerful and often overlooked act that transcends simply hearing someone speak. In today's world, we're bombarded with distractions and often find ourselves multitasking while others are sharing their thoughts. We respond with surface-level comments, or worse yet, we think of our own reply before the other person has even finished. Listening, in its truest form, is not just about catching words, it's about engaging with what is being shared and acknowledging the importance of what the other person is expressing. This kind of listening fosters a connection that is critical to building trust. When we listen deeply, we do more than passively hear a person's words. We understand the emotional or intellectual undercurrent behind them. We focus on what's being said, how it's being said, and the context in which it's said. That means listening attentively not just to the words themselves, but also to the tone of voice, the pauses in between, the body language, and the subtle signs that reveal what someone is truly feeling. In this way, we acknowledge both the message and the messenger, giving them the respect and validation they deserve. Listening shows people they matter because it gives them the opportunity to express themselves fully. It communicates, I see you, I hear you, and I understand you. When someone feels heard, they feel validated in their humanity. There's an innate need in all of us to be seen and to be acknowledged. When we actively listen, we provide that acknowledgement. This goes far beyond merely hearing words. It involves focusing all of our attention on the person in front of us, creating space for them to express their thoughts and emotions without fear of being judged or dismissed. This creates an environment where trust can flourish as people begin to believe they can be open without risk. This deep listening requires humility. We must be willing to set aside our own assumptions, judgments, and distractions in order to genuinely focus on the person who is speaking. It means refraining from formulating a response while someone is talking and instead being completely present in the moment. Humility in listening means recognizing that the other person's thoughts and feelings are valuable and worth understanding, whether or not they align with our own. When we listen without preconditions or expectations, we open up the space for real communication, allowing the speaker to share their point of view without fear of interruption, correction, or premature dismissal. Consider, for example, a colleague coming to you with a challenge. If you immediately jump in with solutions, suggestions, or criticisms, it sends a message that their struggle isn't as important as your advice. On the other hand, when you listen attentively and fully to their problem, it communicates that their experience matters. It shows that you care about the issue they're facing and value their perspective. In this environment, the person feels more comfortable continuing the conversation, knowing they will be heard. Trust develops because they realize that their thoughts are genuinely acknowledged, making it more likely they will turn to you again for support, knowing you won't merely react, you will be there to truly listen. Listening attentively also opens up opportunities for deeper understanding. When someone feels genuinely heard, it enables them to share more, sometimes things they may not have even realized they needed to express. We all carry around unspoken thoughts, feelings, and worries, but these don't always get expressed unless we feel safe in doing so. By listening with patience and empathy, we create the space for others to dig deeper into what's really on their minds. In this space, trust thrives, because both parties know they are sharing something real, something valuable, without fear of judgment or being ignored. The quality of our listening also determines the strength of our relationships. In friendships, it's the ability to listen not just to the words of the other person, but to the emotions underlying them. In romantic relationships, listening goes far beyond hearing an argument or discussion. It means understanding the emotional layer beneath the disagreement and responding not just to the content, but to the emotional truth being shared. Relationships built on listening create a foundation where trust can endure because both individuals feel emotionally supported and validated. In the absence of this kind of listening, misunderstandings multiply and trust erodes, often leading to distance and miscommunication. Leaders, too, can build trust through listening. The best leaders listen to understand rather than to respond. They absorb not just what is being said, but how their team members feel. By truly listening, they are not just assessing the practical value of information they are reading between the lines to understand the emotional atmosphere of their team. This openness makes team members feel valued, heard, and empowered. In turn, people are more likely to be engaged, motivated, and open with their leaders, trusting that their ideas and concerns will be met with respect and attention. In this way, listening becomes a critical component of leadership, a tool for fostering both trust and collaboration. Listening, when practiced authentically, is a gift we give to others. It tells them their voice matters, their experiences are valid, and their feelings are worth recognizing. In a world that often encourages us to speed through our conversations or cut off distractions with technology, active listening is a reminder that human connection is not just about speed, but quality. Listening requires time, patience, and attention, and through these actions, we signal that someone else's thoughts and emotions have a place in our world. Trust deepens not because of grand gestures, but because of the simple, everyday acts of attention we give to those around us. Small, everyday moments create the foundation for trust. In a world that often values grand gestures and extraordinary acts of achievement, it's easy to overlook the quiet, subtle actions that are actually the building blocks of deep, lasting trust. Trust isn't formed solely in moments of high drama or crisis, but rather in the everyday choices we make that, while small in the moment, accumulate over time to create a solid foundation. These small moments are not dramatic, they're the things that happen when no one is watching, the subtle acts that speak to one's integrity, dependability, and care for others. Think about it for a moment. It's not the one big promise or gesture that you remember the most when you think of someone you trust. It's those consistent, reliable actions that happen regularly, often in situations where there's little reward or recognition. It's the friend who makes sure to check in with you, even on ordinary days when everything seems fine, just to see how you're doing. It's the partner who takes care to notice when you're tired or stressed, offering a thoughtful gesture, no matter how small. It's the colleague who consistently follows through with their responsibilities, even when no one is watching, building trust not by their announcements, but by their continued actions. These are the everyday moments that accumulate and shape a deep reservoir of trust. And it's easy to understand how something big, like making a bold promise or making an impactful decision, can leave a lasting impression. But the truth is, it's the small acts done consistently that create the bedrock for trust in any relationship, whether personal or professional. It's the times when someone consistently delivers on their commitments, even on seemingly insignificant matters. It's in those moments when we observe the actions of others that their trustworthiness becomes clear, not in the extraordinary, but in the ordinary. Think about a workplace setting. A manager who remembers the birthdays of their team members or takes the time to ask about their weekend plans isn't making a major show of leadership. They're showing that they see their team as individuals, not just as employees. By creating small opportunities to engage with team members on a human level, a leader builds trust not through grand speeches or dramatic decisions, but by fostering a culture of care and recognition. These small moments can make all the difference in how employees view their leaders, not just as managers of tasks, but as people who genuinely care about their well-being. That, in turn, creates loyalty, morale, and the kind of trust that leads to stronger performance. In friendships, it's the shared small moments that build trust more than any grand conversation or event. It's the quiet acts of support, lending a hand when things get tough, keeping a confidence shared in vulnerability, or offering help when it's least expected. It's the small words of encouragement that feel significant because they show consistent thoughtfulness. Relationships, no matter their nature, are like gardens. If we want them to thrive, we need to cultivate them every day with small gestures of love, kindness, and attention. Trust in any relationship is like this. It's built not on occasional grand gestures, but on the regular acts of care that show we are paying attention and are committed to the connection. A lack of these small moments can, over time, erode trust and perhaps even more dangerously, leave people feeling unseen or unimportant. When these small gestures are absent, when one person or group fails to show up for the other in these everyday ways, it's easy for the relationship to weaken. Just as trust is built over time through consistency, the erosion of trust can also be gradual but powerful. Small, consistent missteps, breaking promises, failing to follow through, neglecting the little things can, over time have a much larger effect than a one-off mistake ever could. The truth is, building trust doesn't require radical acts of change. It's about persistence in the small, sometimes invisible actions that display reliability, care, and integrity. It's about showing up again and again in those everyday moments. Trust isn't created in the grand events we experience with others. It's built over time through daily interactions that establish patterns. These small moments accumulate into something larger than any one gesture, creating a dynamic that strengthens a bond without the need for declarations or promises. One powerful aspect of these everyday moments is that they are often opportunities to demonstrate our values and priorities. They reveal what is important to us. When someone notices the small things like taking an extra moment to care for a colleague in need or asking someone how their day has been rather than just rushing through routine conversations, they communicate that they prioritize the other person and value the relationship. It's not about doing something flashy, it's about making the conscious decision to engage with care in the ordinary things. Through these small acts of thoughtfulness, we show others that they are a priority in our lives. Furthermore, in moments of conflict or stress, these small acts can carry even more weight. When trust has been established through consistent positive interactions in everyday moments, it provides a solid foundation when hard times inevitably arrive. The small acts of care and attention in good times make all the difference when there's a disagreement, a difficult situation, or a misunderstanding. The trust cultivated in those quiet moments holds steady in times of challenge because the other person knows deep down that your intentions and character are sound. They know they can rely on you because you have proven your consistency. Trust is a journey, not a destination. It's something that grows naturally when you make the effort to care for the small details that shape your relationships, whether with loved ones, colleagues, or friends. With every small, thoughtful act, you add another layer of reliability to your character. And with every act, trust takes root and flourishes. The remarkable thing is that all of these small moments will often go unnoticed at the time, but their cumulative effect can be felt deeply in ways that create bonds of trust that are unshakable. These moments, though easy to overlook, are where trust is truly forged. Trust is a risk, but its value comes from its fragility. At the core of every trust-based relationship is an inherent vulnerability. The very act of trusting someone involves opening ourselves up to potential disappointment or hurt. It is a leap of faith that requires courage, as we are allowing ourselves to believe in someone else's word, actions, or intentions without being able to fully control the outcome. Trust is fragile in its nature, and because of that, it holds a tremendous amount of value. We give trust freely in the hope that it will be respected, honored, and returned. But if betrayed, trust can be irreparably damaged, and rebuilding it is often more difficult than building it in the first place. This inherent fragility is precisely why trust is so precious and why it should be treated with the utmost care. When we take the leap of trust, we are relinquishing control. By trusting someone, we are acknowledging that we cannot guarantee the outcome, that the person we trust may choose to act in ways we cannot foresee, and that there is always the possibility of hurt. This unknown territory is uncomfortable, but it is also what makes trust so powerful. When someone places their trust in us, they are taking a personal risk, and it is only through honoring that risk with consistent, reliable behavior that we can demonstrate our value and credibility. If the risk of trust were non-existent, if trust were just a matter of convenience or safety, it would be of far less value. Trust thrives because it carries this potential for both joy and vulnerability. Without the possibility of betrayal, there would be little to gain, and no deep sense of connection would be formed. The fragility of trust also makes us aware of how delicate our relationships can be. Every word, every action, and even our inactions can impact trust. One inconsistency, one dishonesty, or one neglectful act can damage the trust someone has placed in us, sometimes permanently. This is why trust requires active care. It's not something that can be built and left to stand untouched. It is an ongoing process that demands constant nurturing. When we invest in maintaining and honoring trust, we are fortifying the very relationships we hold dear. That's what gives trust its depth, the fact that it is not an object that can simply be stored and protected, but a living thing that requires continuous attention. The value of trust, despite its fragility, lies in the rewards it offers. Trust fosters collaboration, opens up honest communication, and creates a sense of security. When we trust someone, we remove the barrier of suspicion or hesitation, enabling more fluid, open, and productive relationships. In the workplace, when employees trust their leaders or colleagues, they are more willing to take risks, be innovative, and share their ideas. The safety created by trust allows people to be vulnerable in the most productive way by expressing doubts, offering honest feedback, or admitting mistakes without fear of judgment. Trust is the cornerstone of any creative or team-based endeavor because it establishes the baseline expectation that others are acting in good faith and have your best interests at heart. This sense of security is irreplaceable, and it's only found when the risk of trust has been embraced and validated over time. On the flip side, when trust is broken, the consequences can be profound. A broken trust often leads to a breach that can reverberate far beyond the individual situation. The experience of betrayal can lead to withdrawal, cynicism, and hesitation. People become guarded because they have learned the risks associated with vulnerability, and in their minds, the potential for harm outweighs the benefits of openness. Once trust is damaged, it is not easily restored. Rebuilding trust is a long and arduous process that often takes far more time and effort than initially establishing it. The rupture in the relationship creates a gap that cannot be filled immediately. Trust takes time to grow, and once fractured, it can take even longer to heal. And often, even when trust is restored, the memory of that betrayal lingers, leaving a scar that changes the relationship's dynamic forever. Despite its fragility, the potential of trust to build bonds that last is immense. When someone trusts you, it means they believe you have their best interests at heart. This kind of belief is transformative. It turns ordinary relationships into meaningful connections. Trust strengthens bonds between family members, friends, and colleagues because it creates an unspoken understanding that each person is operating from a place of goodwill. Trust grants us the confidence to be our true selves without the constant fear of judgment, rejection, or exploitation. Trust is the lubricant that keeps relationships running smoothly, allowing people to engage with one another freely, unburdened by doubt or suspicion. In any relationship, whether romantic, familial, or professional, the value of trust increases in proportion to the level of vulnerability it takes to offer it. The greater the risk involved in trusting someone, the more valuable it becomes. When we trust someone with something significant like our emotions, our secrets, or our ambitions, we are offering them a piece of ourselves that is fragile and deeply personal. It is in the offering of that vulnerability that trust becomes its most powerful form. It's not about shielding yourself from the risk of hurt, but about having the courage to trust anyway, understanding the rewards it may bring and the potential cost of its loss. Trust holds immense value because of its fragility. It requires constant attention and care. But its value isn't just in its rarity, it's in its ability to bind people together. The potential to build lasting, meaningful relationships, foster collaboration, and cultivate a sense of mutual respect is worth every risk that comes with it. By acknowledging its fragility, we learn to honor trust by being conscious of the responsibility it carries and by valuing it in our actions. Trust is not a commodity to be used lightly, but an investment in the depth and quality of our relationships. We invest in trust by taking the risk of vulnerability, and through time and consistent care, we reap the rewards that only deep, abiding trust can offer. Consistency is the bedrock upon which trust is built. Trust, as we know, is not a single event, but rather a process, a continual demonstration of reliability over time. To trust someone, you must observe how they behave not just in moments of significance, but throughout the normal course of life. It is easy to appear trustworthy in isolated instances. However, trust emerges through repeated actions that align with words and intentions over time. A person's character is not defined by one brilliant moment of performance, but by a consistent display of integrity, honesty, and reliability across days, weeks, months, and even years. It is this consistency that transforms mere perception into trust and gives trust its longevity. It can be easy to get caught up in the desire for dramatic, showy moments, the kind of events that make people sit up and take notice. In our fast-paced world, we value quick results, immediate gratification, and impressive displays of competence. However, if we're focused solely on these grand moments, we might overlook the subtle but far more critical act of consistency. Think of someone you trust completely, not because of any one major gesture, but because they have continually shown up, doing what they say they will do time and time again. You rely on them not because they've had one remarkable success, but because you've seen their commitment, their determination, and their integrity exhibited consistently over time. Consistency doesn't just apply to positive behaviors, it also means how someone handles their mistakes. People will make mistakes, they will falter and misstep. But consistency in how someone owns up to those errors and seeks to make amends is just as important as being right in the first place. The commitment to improving or owning mistakes gives others confidence that they will always see the same person, someone who admits their shortcomings, works towards solutions, and doesn't shy away from difficult truths. These small moments of owning imperfections and striving to repair or improve continue to shape the perception of someone's trustworthiness. It's consistency in the approach to setbacks, failures, and shortcomings that reveals the true character of a person, not simply in how they succeed when things go well. Relationships of all kinds demand consistency, whether they are personal or professional. In families, the simple act of showing up consistently, whether it's a parent providing emotional support or a sibling offering an ear, creates a strong sense of trust between individuals. It's not just about the large events, but the small, everyday efforts: calling, checking in, doing what you said you would do, and offering steady encouragement through ups and downs. Trust is often tested in those quiet moments of day-to-day life. It's in how we respond when things aren't dramatic, but rather mundane, that our integrity shows itself the most. Someone might profess their care for another, but it's the repeated actions, the consistent patterns of engagement, that truly demonstrate whether those words hold weight. Professionally, the need for consistency is equally paramount. Think about a team leader you trust. It is not their one spectacular presentation or groundbreaking decision that earns them your confidence, but their ongoing reliability, how they create an environment of accountability, how they follow up, how they meet commitments, and how they manage both challenges and successes alike with equal steadfastness. The real measure of consistency lies in ordinary moments: responding to emails on time, being available when needed, keeping promises, and addressing issues promptly. It is this consistency that fosters a work environment where people feel secure, supported, and motivated. When people feel they can rely on one another consistently, whether on a personal or professional level, trust naturally thrives. That assurance, built over time, makes the relationship stronger and more resilient. Equally, when we consider consistency, it's important to note that it's not about perfection, it's about being steady. You don't have to get everything right all the time, but showing a consistent willingness to learn, adapt, and grow builds trust. The nature of trust is that it's cultivated slowly but surely over time. It doesn't depend on grand acts or perfect decisions. It depends on being reliable, consistent in behavior, and true to our word even when challenges arise. Those who consistently live according to their values are the ones who garner trust, even if their journey has been filled with struggle, failure, and growth. The trust that is formed in the face of difficulties, of striving and persevering, is more resilient and authentic. Consistency is crucial because it is both the foundation and the sustainer of trust. Without consistency, trust cannot be established or maintained. It would be built on a shaky, unreliable base that would easily crumble under pressure. The consistency in behavior creates predictability, which is a cornerstone of trust. When we can anticipate another person's behavior because it is consistent with their past actions and words, we feel safe, supported, and confident in that relationship. These consistent actions foster a sense of security, encouraging more open, vulnerable exchanges between individuals. In a world that constantly demands change and unpredictability, it's the simple act of showing up as our true, reliable selves each day that builds lasting and meaningful trust. Trust built on consistency is both strong and enduring. The more consistently we show up, do what we say we will do, and act with integrity, the deeper that trust runs. It might not be a flashy or dramatic process, but consistency is the quiet force that shapes relationships that withstand time, challenges, and all the inevitable changes life brings. It is in the day-to-day reliability that true trust is forged. And when that consistency is nurtured over time, trust becomes the unshakable foundation upon which any strong relationship is built. So why does trust take time? Because we're humans, not machines. We're emotional beings, driven not just by what we see or hear, but by how we feel. Building trust means investing in that feeling, not rushing it. It means being patient, doing the right thing, even when no one is watching, and embracing the vulnerability that comes with opening yourself to someone else. Trust may take time, but it's time well spent, because when you build trust, you create something remarkable, a bond that fosters growth, connection, and strength. And in a world where so much feels uncertain, trust is the one thing that can truly hold us together. So let's not rush it. Let's respect the process. Because trust earned over time, that's the kind of trust that lasts. Thank you.